Howdy, howdy, Sue Devil here, and welcome to some more unit testing. I was interested in finding out how vulnerable our giant slayers actually are to missile fire. I mean, all slayers are pretty vulnerable, but there's some key differences between our giant slayers, our regular slayers. Whoops, where's our giant slayers again? That's not what I wanted to do. Our giant slayers, our regular slayers, and our dragonback slayers, and our giant slayers don't have any missile defense whatsoever. They just have that magic defense, unbreakable, hide, and of course death blow, whereas our regular slayers have a 30% block chance against missile fire, and of course they have the unbreakable and death blow again. And our dragonback slayers, interestingly enough, have a 20% physical resistance, and they also actually have charge defensive versus large. I have to remember that because you don't need to charge into cavalry. You can let them charge into you because they'll always have a higher charge bonus than you do. But anyways, and then of course they have the power of the dragonback. So, and I love the place that slayers are in. I mean, this is just such a great, like, your regular slayers are still they're a great value at 900 gold. They really are. And your giant slayers kill incredibly fast, but they're very vulnerable. And of course your dragonback slayers are kind of your tanky version of your slayers with the physical resistance and charge defense, and they have that great slow, the power of the dragonback. Like, they've just done such a great job with slayers, and I hope we see more slayers in the future, because this is just absolutely amazing. Anyways, I wanted to see how vulnerable they were, so I wanted to put them up against just goblin archers and see how fast these goblin archers could kill our slayers. Time it, put it onto the spreadsheet, and get a DPS, or a damage per second, that the goblin archers are doing to our slayers. Then look at them compared to our regular slayers and our dragonback slayers, and then I have some bonus testing at the end also I will show all you guys. So let's just take a look at how fast do they kill. How fast can just basic goblin archers, and I think they have 1 armor piercing, only 16 missile damage, 1 armor piercing. How fast do they kill our giant slayers? And we'll take a look at really how much you have to worry. How much gold per second do they steal out of your pocket when your slayers are being harassed by missile fire, which is an important thing to know, I think. So I just start the battle. I'm going from 60 minutes. I'll take basically the time from when the battle starts to when all the slayers are dead, and that's how I'm going to go and take the data so that I can understand exactly how much damage missile units can do to you, especially even a weak missile unit like a goblin archer. So this is pretty tricky to get. Well, I mean, I do it fast forward. You gotta wait till they're at absolute 0, and this should be right now. Perfect. So they're 58-21, and then we'll go to the spreadsheet. Here we go, and we have our giant slayers here. I did the battle 7 times. On average, the battle took 101 seconds. So the goblin archers killed all of my slayers in 101 seconds, basically a minute and a half. The amazing part is this gold per minute. 742 gold every minute you let even goblin archers hit your giant slayers. I mean, that's a long beard with great weapons every minute that you allow that to happen. So you have to be really, really careful. Like, even a weak unit like goblin can do a number on your slayers, and this would be the same with, you know, skirmishers like chameleon skinks. It would be crushing against factions like the high elves or the wood elves, who can, you know, shoot from a very long way away. So, you know, you really have to be cognizant of that with your dragon slayers. They are super vulnerable to missile fire, and 742 gold per second or per minute is pretty ridiculous. So I wanted to go and redo that fight with the other 2 slayers. So we'll just get out here and grab our regular slayers, because they have that 30% missile block chance. So I wanted to see if it actually comes out to 30%. So I wanted to take a ratio and see if that actually works, and we'll take a look at the numbers after we do the test. Of course, I did this test 7 times, just like all the rest of the testing that I'm doing, just so I can get a reasonably level average. And oddly enough, which is interesting, is missile fire seems to be incredibly consistent compared to melee damage. It is very, very consistent. So we'll start that battle and just let these goblins go to town. And I mean, it doesn't take long to already see that our slayers, they still have 60 models, and now they're finally starting to lose health pretty quickly to these goblin archers. and we will go and see exactly what that ends up at. Okay, and you know, like there's some weird effects probably that happen when you have less and less slayers and they're getting more and more arrows and etc, etc. So boom, 57, 53, which is significantly longer, and we'll go and look at the data. And with the regular slayers, you can see that DPS from the goblins has gone down from 64.1 to 48.4. It's basically at 75% or a 25% reduction, which oddly enough doesn't match their 30% block chance that's in their tooltip. Could be a number of reasons for that. I don't know. Maybe it is actually only 25%, but the tooltip is incorrect. I'm really not sure. Or maybe it's just a kind of a weird effect when you get down to the last few slayers. You know, some of their blocks don't count because the angles the arrows are coming in at. I really don't know, but it seems to be a little bit off. And but definitely, you know, your regular slayers, those shields do matter. And your slayers costing less, you can see that gold per minute you're losing has gone down from 742 to 403. So really, it's gone down from losing a full unit of Longbeards with great weapons to a full unit of miners with blasting charges. So it's still not pleasant. It's still not great. So I thought, let's go and test our Dragonback Slayers, and they have that extra 20% physical resistance. How much of a difference is that actually going to make? And we'll just get them onto the field. 1150. Okay. And we'll start the battle, and we'll just have a look. And it does, some weird things tend to happen when you're starting to get fewer and fewer units. Like I watched this pretty closely, you know, in slow-mo, and I was just kind of looking at it, and you know, your slayers, like, you might actually lose some of that block chance because, you know, what happens is your slayers, if you watch them very closely, they'll start to run into the middle, you know, later in the match. Like, they're not losing a lot of units yet because they're just losing a little bit of health. But they move to maintain their formation, and sometimes they turn a little bit. You can see these guys moved. Yeah, see those guys turned a little sideways. I mean, I don't know if that's what's going on or not. It's really hard to say. But the Dragonback Slayers are definitely lasting longer. And when they start to get down to lower and lower health, it really starts to go faster and faster. And it should be the last volley here. Well, about there. 5732-ish. And we go down. Now 5739, 5738, 5734. It's very, very consistent with missiles. Like there is not very much random chance in missile combat as opposed to melee combat. But what you see is that with that 20% physical resistance and 30% block, they only take 8% less damage than our regular slayers, which is really weird. They have 20% physical resistance. You'd think they'd take 20% less than our regular slayers, and they only take, with the 20% physical resistance and 30% block, only take 30% total less than our giant slayers. Again, kind of odd. Don't understand what's going on there exactly. It just seems a little weird. Honestly, I really don't know. But that's what the data is showing me, and it could be the precise nature of my testing. If I had looked at the damage per volley, maybe the damage per volley will go down precisely by 20% or something like that. But it's just interesting. But definitely, our slayers have gone up from lasting 101 seconds to 134 seconds to 145 seconds. Still, the Dragonback Slayers, even with that 20% physical resistance, are losing more value in gold per minute than our regular slayers at 477. So that is a dwarf warrior instead of a miner with a blasting charge. So it is a significant difference, but you know, in all cases your slayers are very vulnerable. So I thought, just for curiosity's sake, let's take a look at our Rune Lord's buff. So we'll end that battle. I mean, our Rune Lord's protection against missiles. You know, it's not uncommon if you're bringing a Rune Lord, I like to stick him in with a group of Dragonback Slayers, and you know, I will stick him in obviously with a group of Giant Slayers if I can, but he has this ability right here, which is Master Rune of Grungni, which is 20% missile resistance, and it's a ward save. It's an area of effect ward save. It only affects targets in the area. It's constant, and Is that cost 160 gold? Is that worth it? So I was kind of quite curious about that. So I thought I'd get him, and then I go get some Dragonback Slayers, Giant Slayers, and then do this test again and see, with that 20% ward save, do we get 20% less damage or 20% less DPS out of the goblins? How much value is there actually? And, is it worth bringing? Because that's a definite, it's definitely interesting. So you can see, we'll start the battle. You can see our Giant Slayers definitely have that on them, the 20% ward save. We'll get a few shots, and something weird happens, like the goblins won't kill all the Giant Slayers. At the very end, they'll switch over to our Rune Lord, so I had to take the data a little bit differently, and you'll see that. And they don't, like, you can see they don't do a whole lot of damage to our Rune Lord, but I think they should when they get to about 400 health. Okay, now they're switching. Yep. Bang. So now they're just going to shoot at our Rune Lord, and they can actually shoot at him all day if they so choose, and because I have that 20% missile resistance. But anyways, we'll just stop that test and go to the spreadsheet and take a look at how much of a difference that made with our Giant Slayers in terms of reduction of DPS. So with the Rune Lord's 160 gold shield, they took 15% less, 13% less damage per second. It turned out the gold per minute went from 742 to 644. So about 100 less gold per minute. So if you had that shield sticking this 100 less gold per minute, you only need to have it around one of these units for about 90 seconds ish. And if you have it around 2 units, you're going to get value. So this actually might have some value in some matchups. I've brought it against the Wood Elves, but maybe if you're gonna be heavy into Slayers, you could get a lot of value out of that ability. It's not too bad. It's only 160 gold, and it obviously does make enough of a difference to be worthwhile. The last thing I wanted to do is I wanted to go ahead and get a baseline, because we've looked at our Slayers and we've looked at how fast they die. I wanted to take a look at just a group of Longbeards. Longbeards are kind of the perfect Dowie unit, I would say, like the ideal Dowie unit, because their stat points are in the sweet spot. They're just such a fantastic unit. They got 100 armor exactly, so they mitigate 50% of the damage. They have a shield. How fast can these goblins kill our Longbeards? Let's get in there, and I did 7 of these tests as well so that I could have a baseline, so just out of interest sake, so you could see how much of a difference that is. So we'll just get that battle started, and this obviously does take a much longer time to resolve because you can see our Longbeards have not lost a model yet. They have a ton of armor, and they all have shields, and they still haven't lost a model. What's that? 6 volleys, 7 volleys there. Oh, sorry, now they've lost 4 or 5. So they are going to start losing some models for sure. But, they're a lot more robust. And as it turns out, these guys will run out of ammo before they kill all our Longbeards or rout them. And interestingly enough, goblins are so cowardly, generally they run out of ammo and then they just rout. Like right there. They have broken. They used all their ammo and ran away. Frick, I hate goblins. God. Anyways, I should run a fight just to go and kill a bunch of goblins. And now I don't really need to. This is testing. But anyways, you can see we have less than half health. We went down to 57 minutes, so we were in the battle for around 180 seconds. Let's go and see what the data actually shows us in the spreadsheet, just out of curiosity. So here's the Longbeards. They lasted for an average of 183 seconds, and the DPS the goblins were doing was only 23, which is less than half of the damage that is going on to, or about half the damage that's going on to our Dragonback Slayers. I guess 64, a third of the damage that goes on to our regular Slayers, and they basically run them out of ammo. And you can see the gold per minute goes all the way down to 138.2, which isn't even half of a miner. So, and you can see that the unit that was worth 375 gold routed. So technically we came out of that encounter a positive 220 gold or so, without even counter firing those goblins. So a lot of times in campaign you just don't even bother with goblin archers at all until the very end. But you can see that Longbeard's obviously very robust, but I just wanted to give a reference point, of how long these battles last, and how much damage actually gets done. So I guess the moral of the story is all of our slayers are incredibly vulnerable. You have to protect them from even the weakest of missile fire, the weakest of units that are out there, because anything can kill them quite quickly. But your regular slayers are just still a great value. They're still the best value in terms of just straight gold, even though your giant slayers do something different, and your dragonback slayers do something different. And your dragonback slayers, even with the physical resistance, will lose more gold in an engagement like that than the regular slayers with no physical resistance, just because of the difference in their total cost. Anyways, I was just curious about that. Hope you found that interesting yourselves. Love to hear some comments, and down below I love comments and about unit testing, and I'm going to be doing some testing with the Master Engineer very soon, because it's testing that I definitely want to test out his new abilities and everything like that. But love hearing those comments, love to hear testing you'd like to see and that sort of thing. So looking forward to seeing things down below, and with that said, I will see you soon.